And a happy Thursday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We're going to break down a couple of things as we head towards the end of the work week and specifically into your weekend. But first things first, it is Thursday, so that means we do have a new update with your drought monitor. Didn't see much improvement, but we saw a little bit of improvement, so hopefully that is a story of things to come. We now have 4 separate different forms of either dry or drought criteria here in Central Georgia. We have now seen this area of a yellow shade build into areas east of Central Georgia, making its way back over into South Carolina, but we can see that this patch of abnormally dry conditions exists for really just the central portion of Washington County, eastern Washington County as well. It does look like Sandersville, probably one of the only areas that is at least just in simply some abnormally dry criteria, which just means it's been a little bit without some rain, but obviously not near as bad as the rest of Central Georgia, where we still see a moderate drought in the tan color. Step above that, and a severe drought in the orange color, which is probably encompassing most areas here in Central Georgia surface area wise. We do see our northernmost counties included in that orange shade, areas farther down to the southeast, east of I-75, and over to the west of I-75. But the areas of real concern continue to be over here in our westernmost counties, specifically around the Thomaston area in Upson County. That's where we have an extreme drought, and that extreme drought is a bit more widespread in areas farther down to the southeast here in Central Georgia. So we really didn't get as much of improvement as we had hoped for in light of some of the impressive rainfall totals, up to 1 to maybe 2 inches over the course of late last week. But most of that rainfall did come in our northernmost counties as opposed to down in our southernmost counties. And we do have signs of another widespread rainmaker on its way, but it's going to be about a week before it gets here. Until then, it's just going to be kind of some spotty and isolated rain chances. And then it's just going to kind of continue this dry stretch that we've had over the course of the beginning of the new year since we started 2026. So January, we were around 2 inches below what we typically see on average for rainfall, somewhere around 4 inches of rainfall, but we only got about 2 inches of rain per se. Then we went into the month of February, and I believe we were closer to right on par for February, but we had one day that we didn't get some rainfall taken into account with those sensor issues that you've heard me refer to here on this extended forecast. And to start out the month of March, we were just over a ½ inch below where we should be. So 3 consecutive red boxes. Hopefully we can finally add a green box over the next couple of months. And all in total, when you add all these numbers up, just over 3 inches below average. So below where we should be at this point in 2026 at the beginning of March. All this data is taken as of yesterday, March 4th, so as of this past Wednesday. So here's a look at your headlines as we go into the weekend. Hanging around in the 80s. That is going to be the story with your high temperatures each and every day over the course of the end of the work week, into the weekend, and into the first part of next week. But with this temperature warm up comes a little bit of a humidity increase, and that is going to continue to contribute to some pop-up rain chances, which we are going to kick off as early as this afternoon into the evening. And then we are just going to continue to have this very summer-like forecast in the cards as we go throughout the next couple of days. Not exactly like a textbook summer day, but it is pretty close, especially in the fact that these pop-up rain chances, they're operating off the heat of the day. So what that means is the temperatures warm up into the afternoon and it starts to lift all that surface moisture that we've had basically hanging around for most of the morning hours. And that's a process that we typically see on a very warm and a very humid summertime day that can lead to some thunderstorm chances each and every day. But we're seeing it on a bit of a smaller scale and a bit more of a limited process as opposed to a summer day where you could have temperatures in the mid-90s and humidity with some dew point temperatures up in the 70s, maybe even near 80 degrees. But let's walk it around the quad first and foremost. Partly cloudy afternoon settling in. Looks like we actually have a passing cloud right here off Cohen Walker Drive in real time. But otherwise, it's a story of a mix of some sunshine and some clouds, but not as gloomy as it was looking earlier this morning, where we had some widespread fog in areas like downtown Dublin and over to the east and the southeast of Dublin, and other areas like downtown Macon, Georgia National Fairgrounds, where our camera is still a bit iffy as of right now, but we can see plenty of blue sky, and our temperature warm up is going to be underway now that the cloud cover is breaking apart. So let's look at your current temperatures all across the eastern United States. 74 in Macon, matching the numbers in Nashville, 75 degrees, 76 over in Charleston, 76 in Montgomery, pair of 73s in Jackson and Panama City, 80 degrees already down in Orlando, just 1 degree shy of that 80-degree mark down in Laredo, Texas. And then this dividing line where you can kind of see this green transition into more of a blue color. This is actually going to be a very good picture right now of a stationary boundary that is draped across kind of the southern plains and the mid-south portion, maybe the Mississippi River and Ohio River valleys here across the eastern Midwest, maybe getting into the Midwest. Never really understood exactly what classifies as the Midwest here in the United States. It feels like it's a very, very broad area, but nonetheless, where the temperatures are significantly cooler, say in the 50s in Oklahoma City, St. Louis, 40s in Kansas City, 49 in Wichita. These areas are north of the stationary boundary as opposed to all of us down here in the southeast, where we have a good mix of 60s, but predominantly some 70s and even one lone 80 to the south side of that boundary. Current temperatures here in the southeast, we can see across Georgia, South Carolina, and back over into Alabama. There's a few 60s out there, but overall it's a story of mainly the low and the mid 70s, even some areas that are beginning to flirt with the upper 70s down in like Tallahassee, Jacksonville, 76 in Charleston, 77 in Savannah. The 64 up in Myrtle Beach, 65 in Augusta, 68 in Athens, 65 in Atlanta and in Columbus, and even a 67 down there in Pensacola. I imagine if you're still hanging around in the 60s, you're just holding on to a bit more cloud cover than these areas that have already made their way up into the 70s. But take a look at that. Already 74 in Macon, 75 in Warner Robins. I believe 75 is the warmest number we spot, and that is Warner Robins, Milledgeville, and down to Vidalia, where we do see that temperature mark. We are going to continue to watch these numbers get warmer and warmer. Makes me think that our high temperature today might actually get above what I had in the forecast, which what I had forecasted is a little bit above what we hit as of yesterday afternoon. But yesterday afternoon, it felt mighty incredible, so we're just going to continue to reciprocate that feeling. Maybe even a tad bit of a little bit too warm for your liking if you spend an extended amount of time and do some exercise outside, but we'll talk more about those temperatures for the foreseeable future coming up in just a moment. There is a bit of a southerly breeze, and this southerly component to the wind is a big reason why our forecast is doing what it's doing over the next couple of days. A southerly component to the winds, especially this time of year, once we get into the spring, that is going to continue to usher in more moisture, more humidity into the forecast. So the winds, while they're not too gusty, a steady breeze about 5 to maybe 10 miles per hour, they are continuing to pull that moisture up from, say, mainly down to the southeast. So that would be more so some moisture associated with the Atlantic Ocean as opposed to down to the Gulf, where we typically see an even warmer and an even more humid air mass. So typically that air around the Gulf is going to be a bit stickier in nature compared to what we do see compared to the Atlantic Ocean. But here's a look at your dew point temperatures map. And yes, this is starting to look like a very early summertime day, maybe even getting into a kind of textbook spring afternoon where we actually are feeling the humidity a tad bit, even some very faint areas of light green, trying to indicate that some areas have some dew point temperatures maybe in this muggy range, but not quite super muggy and not super unbearable like we would see, say, in the middle of June getting into July. But this is pretty noticeable, and some of the warmest numbers I have seen on your dew point temperatures map in probably a couple of months, because the winter time frame of the year, we typically don't see much moisture in the forecast whatsoever, except when we do have passing weather systems or low pressure centers. All of this moisture is just coming up from the ocean right now, specifically the Atlantic Ocean. And as long as we have a little bit of humidity in the forecast, that is going to continue to lead to our pop-up shower chances. It's going to sprout some rain chances during the heat of the day, each and every day if your temperatures get warm enough, and they are looking to get warm enough. Satellite imagery showing that the cloud cover is hanging around up to the northwest, over to the west of us. Remember the temperature map we just looked at. A little bit cooler in Atlanta, a little bit cooler in Columbus. That's the reason why. They're still holding on to some cloud cover, while most of central Georgia right now looks like it is settling into a mostly sunny afternoon. But the radar is also not picking up on anything in the way of rain down here in central Georgia, let alone the southeast. It's just a story of some scattered cloud cover, which I also imagine that a lot of these clouds down here in the southeast United States, they have been attributed to some foggy skies that built in as of early this morning, but that low-level cloud cover has continued to lift up, and now it's creating maybe a bit of a partly cloudy afternoon as we settle in to the 11 a.m. hour right now. So let's talk some numbers. 77 degrees for a high temperature yesterday, It really just felt absolutely picture perfect. I mean, there was only probably about a 2 to 3 hour window where we were in those upper 70s, where maybe it was a little bit warm for your liking. But the evening hours, I mean, as we got closer to sunset, it was feeling incredible. It was like 73, 74. I was walking around the neighborhood and I was just like, I could stay out here all afternoon long, and made sure to take an extra lap on my afternoon walk yesterday. So hopefully you are going to enjoy this warmer stretch of weather, because 77 is already in the neighborhood of around 10 degrees above average, 9 degrees specifically above average of 68 degrees. Morning low temperature still started out around where it should have yesterday morning, where we had a slight chill in the air, some of that blue color building into the temperature map. That wasn't the case throughout today, and we're going to have some numbers that are actually going to be closer to your average high temperature rather than your average low temperature as we walk out the door the next couple of days. But keep an eye out for some of these records. 87 degrees, we're still not quite forecasting anything in the mid to the upper 80s. However, 1976 is when we set that record. We will continue to keep a close eye on some of these numbers over the foreseeable future. But if we are going to maybe see some of our forecasted highs creep a little bit closer to those numbers in the upper half of the 80s, then I'll make sure I'm talking about how we could be making a run at the records. But I just don't see that happening as of right now. Our records are a little bit warmer than what we see in across other areas in our forecast office that the National Weather Service has highlighted. Atlanta, Columbus, and Athens, they all have the potential to break a record-breaking high temperature today, but not necessarily us here in Macon, where the record stands at, I believe, 86 degrees for today. So 18 degrees, at least we're not blistering cold as well. 1943, I definitely would not want to walk out the door as of that year, because 18 degrees, I don't even know if we had temperatures get that low throughout our winter time frame. But now that we're into the month of March, keeping our fingers crossed that we have seen all of that cold weather pass us by, but we still have the potential. Technically, it is still winter. We have not turned the calendar, at least astronomically, into the spring time frame. But we have started meteorological spring, which just means we're going to start to see warmer temperatures more frequently, but that doesn't put a big-time cold snap out of the realm of possibility. But we're still not seeing any signs of that whatsoever, so I don't think we'll be talking about making a run at the record low temperatures anytime soon. Precipitation, none yesterday. Your departure, we just talked about that, just over 3 inches below where we should be. Sunrise yesterday morning, 6:59 a.m. So that sunrise is now before 7 a.m., but virtually 7 a.m. So you can go ahead and kind of use that as a mental alarm clock. The sun is continuing to rise at 7 a.m. right now, but that is not going to be the case as we go into the next couple of days. Then sunset just past 6:30 at 6:34 in the evening. We're going to get some more hours of some of that evening daylight if you do like the later and later sunset that we are going to have that will eventually take us well into the summer. So for the month of March, one of these is not like the other, and that would be Tuesday's high temperature, 62 degrees. That wedge was a lot stronger than anticipated, and the models were definitely underestimating the strength of it, so it kept our numbers below average by not only 1 or 2 degrees, but about 5 degrees as a matter of fact. But then we got back to our regularly scheduled programming as of yesterday with a high temperature of 77. After Sunday and Monday had high temperatures in the upper 70s as well. So 3 above average days compared to the 1 day that we've had below average for the month of March so far. And over the course of the month of March, your averages will continue to go up. In fact, your average high temperature now sits at 68 degrees. When we started out the month just a couple of days ago, our high temperature, or average high temperature, was 67 degrees. So we're going to go all the way up into the mid 70s by the time we reach the end of the month. 48 degrees is going to be your average low by the time we get to the end of the month, which still has a little bit of a chill to it. 48 degrees, anytime you kind of get below that 50 degree mark, you can classify it as some chilly weather, but we are going to more than likely see some numbers that will be scattered about the 50s for most mornings once we kind of break apart this pattern that is causing us to be very, very warm. And over the course of this month of March, we're gaining 61 minutes of daylight, an hour and a minute of daylight gained. But I did mention that that time change is going to be occurring. That's actually going to be this weekend, which we'll talk about a little bit more soon. But by the end of the month of March, around a 7:23 a.m. sunrise, so that's a little bit later than what we're talking about as of this morning, and then 7:54 p.m. sunset really close to the 8 p.m. hour. That is a whole lot later than what we were talking about as of this morning as well. But then your hottest temperature, I guess I shouldn't have clicked there. I wonder if I can just go back a graphic. There we go. Sometimes the clicker does want to agree with me. 92 degrees. That is the warmest temperature we've ever seen in the month of March, and that's what I really wanted to turn your attention to. Are we forecasting anything that warm? Absolutely not as of right now, but we are forecasting some well above average numbers, and we could be making a run at the records. But just to give you a reference, this has happened before. 92 degrees, it happened back in 1929, believe it or not. So it's not abnormal to maybe see some 80s and possibly even a 90 or two once we get to the back half of the month of March, a little bit prematurely. So another cloudy, foggy, gloomy, misty. We can use all the adjectives that we want. It was just a downright kind of mopey start to the day, and we are going to continue to have those mopey starts each of the next couple of days in the form of some low-level cloud cover, surface-level cloud cover, even a few mist showers to greet you out the door that are so light our radar's not even going to pick it up. But as we head into the afternoon, it's more so a story of some partly cloudy skies, but notice the rain icon for today. Your rain chances are very low, but they are still going to be there, and it's more impressive than what we've seen over the course of the last couple of days where we haven't had any rain chances whatsoever. But 81 is my forecasted high. That is 13 degrees above average, and those numbers are going to hang around in that range of around 13 to maybe even getting up to about 16 or 17 degrees above average for the next 7 days. So we will be mostly sunny later, and what I mean by later is kind of right now as we settle into the early afternoon time frame now that we are out of the morning forecast. Southerly breeze around 5 to 10 miles per hour. That's just continuing to pull up that warmer and that more humid air mass, and that is what we are going to deal with for the remainder of today. So here's a look at your meteogram, topping out around 78 or 79 degrees as we go into the peak afternoon window. Our numbers are only a couple degrees shy of that as of right now. I think we're actually pretty close to hitting that 76-degree mark. So we might be a degree or two ahead of schedule, and we have been overshooting this graphic as of recently. So that's why I think that we'll make the climb above the 80-degree mark and somewhere around maybe 81, 82, or even possibly 83 degrees later on this afternoon. And then the numbers will dip back down into the upper 70s as we go into the evening. But right there around sunset, 77 degrees still. I mean, you can go outside and sit on the patio at your favorite restaurant if you have any dinner plans later on tonight. So surface map, we did talk about that stationary boundary, kind of creating that dividing line of some cooler air up to the northwest and some warmer and some more humid air down to the south. Well, here it is on your surface map, and it is attached to this low pressure center that right now is creating a bit of an active weather scene across areas of Arkansas, getting into western Kentucky, all the way up into Indiana and getting up into Ohio. There is going to be a lot of moisture associated with this low pressure center, but as this front does kick back into gear a little bit, and it is already creating a lot of lift along that stationary boundary, that is going to cause some more active weather in the form of some storms across areas like Oklahoma, Arkansas, getting down into Texas, maybe even portions of Louisiana a little bit later on today. And this could have an implication to our forecast as we go to the foreseeable future. So let's go ahead and time out number one and talk about what to expect over the next 3 days on Future View, but you are going to notice a very similar trend day by day as we go all the way through Saturday. So pop-up shower chances, and what I mean by these is they are operating off the heat of the day, number one. So during that warmest window of temperatures in the afternoon, that's where you're going to start to get a lot more just natural lift of that convective process, that warm air rising and taking that surface moisture with it up into the sky. And it's going to have a couple of light showers, maybe across western central Georgia. That's where the model runs have been a lot more confident in at least some of those pop-up rain chances kind of sprouting. But as we go into the evening hours, rain chances are still going to remain a possibility. It's not going to be everywhere. It is going to be very hit or miss. So what I mean by hit or miss, it may rain, let's say, in northern Monroe County. Not saying that it's going to do that exactly, but around High Falls Road, the Johnstonville Road exits, northern Monroe County, you see another shower kind of move up into Jasper County, but it's not doing anything down in, say, Forsyth, down in Culloden, down in Juliet. So hit or miss showers are just going to be very localized. Only some areas are going to get that rain. In all likelihood, you're very likely going to miss out on the rain throughout the rest of today. But we do have about a 20% chance of a pop-up shower throughout the afternoon into the evening hours before we go overnight. And then we once again watch some of that lower level cloud cover build back into the forecast. Within some of these lower level clouds, we are going to notice some sprinkles, some mist showers that could greet you out the door. Again, that's not really too substantial of a rain chance, especially compared to these afternoon pop-up showers, which also are not too substantial whatsoever. But the messy and gloomy environment will once again greet you out the door tomorrow morning. No need for those sunglasses on the morning commute, but definitely want them as you are making your way home. And there's plenty of sunshine, but also once again, those spotty, those hit or miss light showers for the most part, but maybe some pockets of some red that you can see, which makes me think that a rumble of thunder or two might be possible throughout Friday afternoon and evening in a select few spots. Moral of the story, don't be surprised if you do hear a rumble of thunder, and consider yourself lucky if you get one of these lower end thunderstorms, because it's nothing in the way of severe weather, and it's going to give you some localized heavier rainfall rates. And those heavier rainfall rates kind of translate into some higher rainfall accumulation totals, and we definitely need all the rain that we can get, hence the drought monitor that I'll let off this extended forecast with. But as we go into the nighttime hours each and every night, those spotty shower chances do fizzle out. And then once again, we have a very warm and a very humid environment. So we are going to continue to form those clouds down at the surface, start out nice and gloomy, maybe a bit misty as you walk out the door on Saturday morning. Going into Saturday afternoon, we see all that cloud cover eventually clear. And the latest run of Future View, not too keen on the precipitation chances on Saturday, although I do think that your rain chances on Saturday are going to have a little bit more organization to them, because you can see a lot of widespread rain chances up to the north and northwest of us. And that's going to be that stationary boundary trying to creep down into the southeast United States. Will it make it into central Georgia? That's the million-dollar question, number one. But it is going to be in the near vicinity of us, and there's going to be some forcing behind maybe some more widespread rain chances. So that's why I've given Saturday a little bit of an uptick, because we have a better chance of maybe seeing some of these spotty showers or maybe even some thunderstorms popping up ahead of that main frontal boundary. We do talk about that typically when we have maybe something in the form of a severe weather risk. There is no severe weather risk for Saturday as of right now, but we will talk about a very low-end chance that the SPC has given us, at least some select areas. But I have more confidence that the active Saturday picture, the maybe messy day for some weekend plans, that is going to be around northwest Georgia. But we do see this low-end level 1 threat clipping Upson, Lamar, maybe right there around the High Falls Road exit up here in Monroe County, Butts County, and into portions of northwestern Jasper County. This is barely encompassing any of central Georgia, and I have pretty good confidence that they'll actually trim this back up to the northwest a little bit by the time this is all said and done. This is the day 3 outlook, so typically we get some fine tuning with these outlooks as we get closer and closer to the actual event. But there is the potential for a stray, isolated, strong, or severe storm. It's the same thing that I was telling you about the rain chances for your Thursday, for your Friday. Isolated hit or miss just means 1 or 2 areas, a select few spots could see a stronger to severe storm. Main impact would be some gusty winds, of course, frequent lightning, maybe even some brief hail that pops up. We've seen that with the last couple of weather systems in northern Georgia, but not necessarily here in central Georgia. So let's take a look at your Future View rainfall graphic. If you get lucky and you get maybe something in the way of a thunderstorm with some slightly heavier rainfall rates, you could have some isolated totals that get closer up to the 1-inch mark. But most locations here in central Georgia, they don't move from that 0 dot that you do see. And in fact, we see areas like Wilcox, Dodge County, most of Lawrence County, Johnson County. There's no rain whatsoever. So you have a good chance of not seeing rain whatsoever over the course of the next 3 days. Hence why I'm going to continue to say, keep your outdoor plans. And we have a lot of things going on in central Georgia over the course of this weekend, which I'll be doing some event-specific forecasts for as we get into our extended forecast tomorrow. But all those plans that you do have Friday and Saturday to kick off the weekend, I would say go ahead and let them fly. However, as we go into Sunday, it is maybe a little bit of a different story, which we'll get to in just a second. So next 3 days, low 80s for highs, temperatures starting out around 60 to welcome you out the door. You're not going to need any layering whatsoever. It is going to be t-shirt and shorts weather. I was able to get away with wearing a t-shirt and shorts into work this morning. So yes, it felt very comfortable. And that's the lowest number that I do have forecasted for the next 3 days. I was about to say 7 days, but as a matter of fact, it might be over the course of the next 7 days. Have to go back and double check once we pop up your 7-day forecast in just a little. 30% chance of a shower or a thunderstorm possibly on Saturday. I wouldn't rule out hearing a rumble of thunder on Friday, but I think the chances on Saturday are a little bit greater. And also in terms of the foggy skies, those are looking to build back in. Patchy areas of dense fog like we did see this morning that are really going to limit your visibility are going to also be possible as you walk out the door on Friday morning. Not only Friday, but also Saturday morning. And we also have the possibility of these foggy skies building back in for your Sunday morning. So once again, are you sensing a pattern here? It is going to be virtually a copy and paste, rinse and repeat, whatever you want to say, carbon copy forecast day by day, today into tomorrow, into Saturday, and all the way into your Sunday. But Sunday afternoon might be a bit different in the aspect of your rain chances. But until we get there, something else you need to continue to monitor. I know I, for one, felt my throat getting a little bit scratchy today after taking that afternoon walk yesterday. Yes, it's beautiful weather to be outside, but make sure that if you're sensitive to tree pollen and now grass pollen, which has gotten a little bit of an uptick as of recent days, those are going to be affecting you, maybe causing you to sniffle and sneeze a little bit. Make sure you're taking that Claritin, taking that Allegra, and things like mold. If that is something that you are more sensitive to, may want to just avoid being outdoors for a prolonged period of time. We'll be talking about the allergy monitor for, I imagine, the next 2 to 3 months. Hopefully we can get that graphic out of here sometime in the early May timeframe, but I do imagine allergy season is going to run rampant. But hey, if we get an earlier start to it, maybe we'll get a bit of an earlier end to it. No real change with your afternoon highs, hanging around in the low 80s each of the next 5 days. Morning low temperatures, today was the outlier, believe it or not, and it was more of a middle ground low temperature because we saw some areas down into the lower 50s, but most areas were actually starting out in the low 60s. Well, now everyone's going to get on board with those upper 50s and low 60s as we go into the weekend and the beginning of next week, well above average of 43 degrees, where we typically start out the mornings around this time of year. So Sunday morning, I think we are going to have our fair share of some foggy skies, but it does look like the rain chances mainly up to the north and the northwest of us as that stationary boundary does begin to push in. And it does look like we have a decent chance of seeing some more widespread coverage of some showers, maybe even a few thunderstorms as we roll into Sunday afternoon. Wouldn't be surprised to see one of those low-end level 1 risks thrown on Sunday by the time we get the day 3 outlook as of tomorrow. But again, it doesn't really change your forecast. I would say Sunday's the day that maybe you want to avoid something in the way of outdoor plans, but I don't know if I'm still entirely confident in a widespread washout by any means. If you have plans on Sunday, especially earlier in the day, I think they are going to be good to go, but just know the earlier in the day they are, mainly before lunchtime, you are going to be greeted with plenty of fog in the picture once again. So then as we go all the way into Sunday evening and begin the new work week next week, it does look like we clear out, and I wouldn't doubt that foggy skies will continue into your Monday morning because we really don't see anything to move through that is going to dry our forecast out. It doesn't really look like this frontal boundary entirely sweeps through, maybe ushers in a drier air mass. It kind of parks itself and then it hangs around here for a little bit, but then it just kind of dissipates and it doesn't really have any organization past next Monday. So your rain chances are still there for Monday, maybe down a little bit from what we see on Sunday, but then they really go away for your Tuesday and your Wednesday. I'm not really seeing anything here on the long range models that could impact our rain chances. But then we start to get an eye on this over to the west of us. Starting next Wednesday afternoon, we've already had the highlighted potential that this could be a storm system from the National Weather Service. I would say Thursday is the day that we're going to want to go ahead and put in the back of our head. So a week from today, it is very likely going to be a messy forecast with some widespread rain. Forecasted to have pretty good agreement right now. This is a week out ahead of time, and both the GFS and the European are agreeing on a pretty similar timing as we go into the afternoon on Thursday, especially if we get those temperatures up into the 80s before this comes through. That would only enhance the environment that it does have for maybe some potential storms. But at the very least, we're going to see some widespread rain with this frontal boundary, which we definitely do need, but we'll continue to fine-tune the specifics in terms of maybe something in the way of potential severe weather. We'll talk about some of the rainfall totals, but don't think I quite have too much time for that. Reminder, time change, Saturday into Sunday. You're losing an hour of sleep, so when you wake up, if your clocks don't change automatically, you are going to need to move them an hour forward in time. but the sunset is going to be around 7:40 on Sunday evening, and it will continue to get later and later as we go into that first day of summer eventually. But your 7-day forecast just continues to hold on to some unseasonably warm weather, but your rain chances from day to day, probably the best on Sunday. They will begin to taper off as we go into the beginning of next week. So like I said, we'll help you plan out everything that you need to know for weekend events tomorrow at 11 a.m. here on this extended forecast. So until then, we will see you at 11 a.m. sharp.